The rain drummed against the windows of Murphy's diner like impatient fingers, each drop catching the neon light from the "Open 24 hours" sign and fracturing it into 1,000 tiny prisms. I sat in the corner booth, the one with the cracked vinyl seat that everybody avoided, watching her move between tables with that easy grace that some people are just born with. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Her name tag said Lucy, and she had auburn hair that caught the fluorescent lights in ways that reminded me of autumn leaves. She couldn't have been more than 25, maybe younger, with freckles scattered across her nose like she'd been kissed by sunshine. When she smiled, which she did often, even at the truckers who barely grunted their orders, her whole face lit up with something genuine. Something pure. I was there to kill her. The contract had come through my usual channels. A manila envelope slipped under my apartment door, containing a photograph, an address, and enough cash to pay my rent for 6 months. No explanation, no context. That was how it always worked in my line of business. You didn't ask questions, you didn't get involved. You completed the job and moved on. But sitting there, watching Lucy refill coffee cups and laugh at some trucker's bad joke, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 15 years of professional killing: hesitation. "More coffee, hun." Her voice startled me from my thoughts. She stood beside my table, coffee pot in hand, that trademark smile lighting up her face. Up close, I could see she had green eyes, not the pale green of jealousy or sickness, but the deep emerald of summer forests. "Sure," I managed, pushing my cup toward her dot as she poured. I noticed her hands. They were small, delicate, with chipped pink nail polish and a thin gold band on her ring finger. Married. The detail hit me like a punch to the gut. Somewhere someone was waiting for her to come home. "Rough night?" she asked, settling the coffee pot on the table and pulling out her order pad. "You look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders." I almost laughed at the irony, if she only knew. "Something like that," I said. "What's good here?" "Well, depends on what you're in the mood for. The meatloaf's been sitting under the heat lamp since Tuesday, so I'd avoid that. But Martha, our cook makes a mean apple pie, fresh this morning." She leaned in conspiratorially, lowering her voice. "Between you and me, it's the only reason half these guys stop by." "Don't tell Martha I said that, though. She thinks it's her charming personality." Despite everything, I found myself smiling. Actually smiling. When was the last time that had happened? "Pie sounds good," I said, "and maybe some more of that coffee." "Coming right up, sugar." She walked away, and I watched her go, noting the slight hitch in her left leg. Old injury, maybe. A car accident. It didn't slow her down, but it was there, a small imperfection that somehow made her more human, more real. I pulled out my phone and stared at the photograph again. Same auburn hair, same freckles, same warm smile. Lucy Patterson. Age 26, worked the night shift at Murphy's Diner on Route 9. No criminal record. No debts, no obvious enemies. Just a waitress trying to make ends, meet in a world that didn't seem to care about people like her. My reflection stared back at me from the black screen of my phone. Jake Morrison, age 41, professional killer. 23 confirmed kills, never caught, never questioned. I'd eliminated mob bosses, corrupt politicians, unfaithful spouses, and business rivals. I'd killed in alleys and penthouses, in broad daylight and under cover of darkness. I'd used guns, knives, poison, and my bare hands. I'd never hesitated. Not once. Until now. "Here we go," Lucy said, appearing beside me with a steaming slice of apple pie and a fresh pot of coffee. "Martha says to tell you she made it with extra cinnamon, just the way her grandmother used to." "That's kind of her." Lucy slid into the booth across from me, which surprised me. "You don't mind, do you? It's been dead quiet tonight, and I could use the company. I should have minded. I should have sent her away, completed my job, and disappeared into the night like I always did. Instead, I found myself saying, "Not at all." She propped her chin on her hand and studied me with those forest green eyes. "So, what brings you to our little slice of paradise at 2 in the morning? Most folks passing through don't stick around this long." "Just traveling," I said, taking a bite of pie. It was good, better than good. The apples were tender, the crust flaky, the cinnamon warm and comforting. This really is excellent. Martha will be tickled pink. She doesn't get many compliments from the coffee and run crowd. Lucy's smile faltered slightly. "You seem different from our usual customers, quieter, more, I don't know, thoughtful, I guess. Is that good or bad?" "Good," she said without hesitation. "Most of the guys who come through here are either trying to grab my ass or complaining about everything from the coffee temperature to the color of the walls. It's nice to have someone who just wants to sit and eat pie without causing a fuss." I studied her face, looking for any sign of fear or suspicion. There was none. She was talking to me like I was just another customer, just another human being passing through her life for a brief moment. She had no idea that I was there to end her life. "Lucy," I said, and something in my voice must have changed because her expression grew more serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure, hun. Are you happy? I mean, really happy?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. She sat back, considering it more carefully than I'd expected. "That's a hell of a question for 2 in the morning," she said finally. "But yeah, I think I am. I mean, it's not the life I planned, you know. I was supposed to be a veterinarian. Had a scholarship to state and everything. But then my mom got sick, and the medical bills ... double quotes, she shrugged. Sometimes life has other plans for you. Do you ever regret it? Giving up your dreams?" "Every day," she said, but there was no bitterness in her voice. "But then I think about all the people I've met here, all the little moments that wouldn't have happened if I'd taken a different path. Like right now talking to you. There's something nice about that, don't you think? These random connections we make with strangers." I felt something crack inside my chest, something that had been frozen solid for longer than I could remember. "What about you?" she asked. "What makes you happy?" The question hit me like a physical blow. When was the last time anyone had asked me that? When was the last time I'd even considered it? "I don't know," I said honestly. "Well, that's sad," she said. But not in a pitying way. More like she was stating a simple fact. Everyone should know what makes them happy. Even if it's something small, like the smell of fresh coffee or the way rain sounds on a tin roof. "What makes you happy?" I asked. Her smile returned, softer. This time, lots of things. Making someone's day a little better with a good cup of coffee and a kind word. My husband's terrible jokes. He thinks he's a comedian, but he's really not. Sunday mornings when we sleep in and pretend we don't have responsibilities. The way my garden looks in the spring when everything's coming back to life. She talked about her life with such simple joy that it made my chest ache. Here was someone who had every reason to be bitter dreams deferred, stuck in a dead-end job, working nights to make ends meet, and yet she radiated warmth and contentment. I thought about my own life. The sterile apartment, the sleepless nights, the constant looking over my shoulder, the money in offshore accounts that I never spent because there was nothing I wanted to buy, the absence of anyone who would miss me if I disappeared tomorrow. "You're married," I observed, nodding toward her ring. 3 years next month, she said, her face lighting up. "Tommy works construction, so our schedules are opposite most of the time, but we make it work. He leaves me little notes in my lunchbox, and I leave them in his hard hat. Silly stuff, but it keeps us connected. No kids?" Her expression flickered, just for a moment, and I saw a shadow of pain cross her features. "We've been trying," she said quietly. "But sometimes these things Take time. I wanted to tell her she had more time than she knew. I wanted to tell her to go home to her husband, to hold him tight and never let go. I wanted to tell her a lot of things, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the photograph, placing it face down on the table between us. "Lucy," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something." But before I could continue, the bell above the door chimed and 3 men walked in. They were trying to look casual, but I'd been in this business long enough to recognize predators when I saw them. They moved wrong, their eyes swept the room wrong, and the bulges under their jackets were all wrong. Lucy started to get up. "I should. Stay right there," I said, my voice sharp enough to freeze her in place. "Don't move. Don't look at them. Just keep looking at me. What's wrong?" she asked, fear creeping into her voice for the first time. The 3 men had spread out, positioning themselves strategically around the diner. One by the door, one at the counter, one moving toward the back exit. Classic containment formation. My mind raced. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I was the one with the contract. I was the one who was supposed to kill her. So who were these guys? "Listen to me very carefully," I said, leaning across the table. "In about 30 seconds, I'm going to flip this table over and use it as cover. When I do, I want you to get down on the floor and crawl toward the kitchen. Don't look back, don't. Try to help, just get to the kitchen and call the police." "I don't understand, Lucy." I reached across and took her hand, surprised by how small and warm it felt in mine. "I know this doesn't make sense, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She stared into my eyes, and I saw the moment when she made her decision. She nodded. "Good girl." The man by the door was reaching under his jacket when I flipped the table. The heavy Formica surface crashed down just as the first bullet started flying, and I heard Lucy scream as she dove for the floor. I'd left my gun in the car over confidence, maybe, or some subconscious desire to make this job different from all the others. Now I was regretting that decision as I crouched behind inadequate cover, while 3 armed men tried to fill me full of holes. The sugar dispenser on our table exploded, showering me with glass and artificial sweetener. I grabbed one of the larger shards and waited for a lull in the gunfire. When it came, I rolled left, coming up behind the lunch counter just as the nearest gunman was reloading. I moved fast, muscle memory from my army days taking over. The glass shard went into his neck, and he dropped without a sound. 1 down, 2 to go. "Lucy," I shouted. "Are you okay?" "I'm here." Her voice came from somewhere near the kitchen, shaky but strong. "There's a back door. Stay where you are." I yelled, "Don't move until I tell you." The remaining 2 gunmen had taken cover behind the counter stools and were laying down suppressing fire. I could hear Martha shouting from the kitchen, probably calling 911. Good. Maybe the cops would get here before this turned into a complete bloodbath. I grabbed the dead gunman's pistol and checked the magazine. Half full. It would have to do. The next few minutes were a blur of violence and chaos. I'd like to say it was skill that got me through, but mostly it was luck and the fact that whoever had hired these 3 hadn't sprung for top-shelf talent. They were sloppy, impatient, and they made the kind of mistakes that got you killed in this business. When the smoke cleared, all 3 were dead, and I was bleeding from a graze on my left arm that burned like hell but wasn't serious. The silence was deafening after all the gunfire. "Lucy?" I called. "Here." She emerged from behind the grill, her uniform torn and dirty, but otherwise unharmed. Her eyes were wide with shock, but she was moving under her own power. What just happened? Who were those men?" I sagged against the wall, suddenly feeling every one of my 41 years. "They were here to kill you." "Kill me? But why?" "I don't understand." I pulled out the photograph and handed it to her. "Because someone paid them to." "Just like someone paid me." She looked at the picture, then at me. then back at the picture. The color drained from her face. You single quotes re dot dot dot. A professional killer, yes. I met her eyes, expecting to see fear, hatred, disgust. Instead, I saw confusion and something that might have been pity. I've been hired to kill 23 people in the past 15 years. I've never failed. I've never hesitated. But you didn't kill me. No, I didn't. Why? It was the question I'd been asking myself since the moment she'd first smiled at me. Why had this job been different? Why had this woman, this stranger, been able to reach something in me that I'd thought was dead and buried? Because, I said slowly, you asked me what made me happy. And sitting here, talking to you, eating pie and drinking coffee ... For the first time in 15 years, I remembered what that felt like. Tears were streaming down her face now, but she wasn't sobbing or hysterical. She just looked incredibly sad. What happens now? She asked. Now I disappear. I clean up this mess and I disappear, and you never see me again. But they'll send others, won't they? Whoever hired you will just hire someone else. She was right, and we both knew it. As long as the contract existed, Lucy Patterson would never be safe. She'd spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, wondering if every customer, every stranger on the street, every knock on the door might be death coming to collect ... unless ... There is another way, I said. What? I find out who put the contract on you and why. And then I make sure they never have the opportunity to try again. You'd do that? For me? For you, I said, and realized I meant it. But it means you have to disappear for a while. New identity, new location, new life, at least until I can clean this up. Lucy was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photograph in her hands. Then she looked up at me with those forest green eyes, and I saw something there that I'd never seen directed at me before. Trust. Okay, she said. What do I need to do? The next hour was a whirlwind of activity. I made phone calls to people who specialized in making problems disappear, both the human kind and the kind that left bloodstains on diner floors. By the time the sun came up, Murphy's Diner looked like nothing more exciting than a failed robbery had taken place there. Lucy had said goodbye to her husband with a story about a family emergency that would keep her away for a few weeks. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was all she could safely tell him for now. The pain in her eyes as she made that call nearly broke my heart. Will I see him again? She asked as we sat in my car, waiting for her new identity papers to be delivered. If I do this right, yes, I said, but it might take time. How much time? I don't know. She nodded, staring out the window at the sunrise painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. You know what's funny? Yesterday, my biggest worry was whether we could afford to fix the washing machine. Now I'm sitting in a car with a professional killer about to become someone else entirely. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it more than any apology I'd ever made. This is all my fault. If I hadn't taken the contract, if you hadn't taken it, someone else would have. And that someone might not have had second thoughts about apple pie and conversation. She turned to look at me. You saved my life, Jake Morrison. Whatever else happens, don't forget that. The man who delivered Lucy's new documents was a ghost from my past. Someone who owed me enough favors to ask no questions and leave no traces. Lucy Patterson was officially dead, killed in a car accident on a mountain road 3 states away. In her place was Sarah Mitchell, complete with birth certificate, social security number, and a history that would stand up to casual scrutiny. Where will you go? I asked as she tucked the papers into her purse. Better if you don't know, she said, and I realized she was right. The less I knew about her new life, the safer she'd be. We sat in the car for another few minutes, neither of us wanting to say goodbye. Finally, Lucy Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. Find them, she said. Find whoever did this and make sure they can't hurt anyone else. I will. And Jake? Find out what makes you happy. Really happy. You deserve that. She got out of the car then, walking away without looking back. I watched her until she disappeared around the corner. Just another stranger in a city full of strangers. I kept my promise. It took me 3 months to track down the man who'd put the contract on Lucy Patterson, a loan shark named Vincent Kozlov, who'd been using her diner as a front for money laundering. When Lucy had innocently reported some suspicious transactions to the IRS, she'd unknowingly signed her own death warrant. Kozlov died in what the newspapers called a tragic accident, involving a gas leak in his office building. His entire operation died with him, along with any remaining threats to a waitress who no longer existed. I never saw Lucy again. I don't know where she went or what name she goes by now. I don't know if she ever had the children she wanted, or if she ever became the veterinarian she dreamed of being. I hope she did. I hope she found her way back to her husband and her garden and her Sunday mornings sleeping in. But sometimes, on rainy nights when I can't sleep, I think about her smile and the way she made terrible coffee taste like salvation. I think about the question she asked me, "What makes you happy?" and how it changed everything. I'm not a killer anymore. Haven't been for 2 years now. These days, I run a small cafe in a town whose name I won't mention, in a state that doesn't matter. I make good coffee and serve pie that's almost as good as Martha's used to be. I have regular customers who tell me their problems, and I listen without judgment. It's not much of a life, maybe, but it's mine, and it makes me happy. And sometimes, late at night when the rain is drumming on the windows and the neon sign flickers in the darkness, I remember a waitress who smiled when she took my order, not knowing I was there to kill her. She saved my life that night, in ways she'll never know. I just hope I saved hers too. The end up next. You've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.